prosperity by reducing the crushing tax burden on our companies and on our workers. The taxes are crazy.
President Trump there in North Dakota 1 week ago making a push for tax reform. This is one of his signature campaign promises. A little secret, tax reform is sort of everybody's signature campaign promise.
It's snarky. This is
it is a very big deal, which is why it doesn't happen all that much. But this push for tax reform is moving into high gear. A White House official says the president will be traveling to about a dozen states in the next several weeks.
But what does that mean? We've seen him give lots of speeches saying it's going to be good for you, bad for me. But what is in there? The president also has another bipartisan meeting set for 2 p.m. today as he seeks to cut deals on tax reform and more. This afternoon's meeting includes Democratic and Republican members of the so-called House Problem Solvers Caucus. In all, 8 Democrats and 5 Republicans. It follows the dinner the president hosted last night with 3 red state Democratic senators, Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, Joe Donnelly of Indiana, along with 3 Republican members of the Senate Finance Committee. Afterwards, the Democrats each released hopeful statements describing the get-together as a good and productive discussion. Listen, after the meeting Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi had last week, they were ready to dunk. The president also tweeted this morning, quote, the approval process for the biggest tax cut and tax reform package in the history of our country will soon begin. Move fast, Congress! Exclamation point. Followed by, quote, with Irma and Harvey devastation, tax cuts and tax reform is needed more than ever before. Go, Congress, go!
All right, what do we know? Let's just talk about what we know about the plan so that we can actually talk about it. Walk with me over here and let me show you what the White House says the goals are. One of them is simplifying the tax code. Not a terrible goal. You can pretty much get everybody in the country to agree that the tax code is too complicated. So one thing they want to do is reduce the number of tax brackets to 3 instead of 7 and eliminate the alternative minimum tax and the estate tax. This starts to get, particularly the last one, the estate tax, that starts to get a little more complicated and a little more political. Also among the goals are to reduce tax rates for individuals and businesses, to grow the economy, and do not add debt and deficit. We should put a 4th bullet here, Stephanie Ruhle, which is also to add a full head of hair to me, because this is close to impossible, but we're going to discuss that as well. The White House has released a few specifics, not nearly enough for the biggest tax reform plan in the history of the planet, but we have a few specifics. The plan calls for doubling the standard deduction that you can take on your tax return, cutting the corporate tax rate to 15% from the current 35%. Just understand a couple things. We're not really at 35%. The rate that companies pay is somewhere between 14 and 25%, depending on how you are. And a lot of people, including the president, are backing away from getting down to 15%. That's hard to do. Not impossible, but hard. And extending reduced rates for small businesses. This could be interesting. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin is indicating that this 15% corporate rate may be in jeopardy. Let's listen to what he had to say.
The president has made it clear since the campaign, ideally he'd like to get it down to 15%. I don't know if we'll be able to achieve that given the budget issues, but we're going to get this down to a very competitive level. And what the exact number is less important. And what's more important is making sure we have a competitive system.
Fair enough. Secretary Mnuchin also said the goal now is to get tax reform done. I really am loath to use the term tax reform until I see what this is. It looks like tax cuts funded by the deficit, but he wants to get it done. Like, show me and we'll change our view on it. He wants to get it done by the end of the year. You remember the original goal was getting it done before the August recess. That was delayed because health care didn't get done. And we have to note that this tax cutting is based on an unsupported assumption that doing so will somehow speed up the economy at such a rate that there will not be any increase to the deficit.
Very few legitimate economists support that notion, and recent history doesn't support it either. What this might end up becoming is the biggest deficit finance tax cut in U.S. history, with very, very little reform, actually. Joining us now live, Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer and Republican Congressman Tom Reed. Oh, my goodness. It says both from New Jersey. That is not true. Mr. Gottheimer is from the state of New Jersey.
Ready to move?
And Tom Reed is from New York. You guys are friends, but not neighbors just yet.
And for people in the rest of the country, that's not an ideal mistake to make. This is like the Hatfields and the McCoys. But they are here with us. You're both co-chairs of the House Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus. You got 35 House members, various members of which will be attending these bipartisan meetings with President Trump on tax reform in a few hours. Here's my question to both of you. I believe that there's real bipartisan work to be done. I believe that Americans of all political stripes share a view that tax needs to be reformed. But what's with the dinners and all of that? What we need is specifics. We need plans to hammer out in committee, have hearings with people, and get something actually done.
Well, I'll tell you, serving on the committee, that's exactly where we're moving to. But as you develop the relationships and the trusting environment, like we have done on the Problem Solvers Caucus, that is critical to working together in order to solve this problem of a broken American tax code.
So, Congressman Reed, given what President Trump, Republican President Trump, has said about your colleagues, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, you have a trusting relationship with him? You trust the president?
I do. I've gotten to know the president, campaigned with him, and I will tell you, he's now learned the lessons of D.C.'s gridlock, that enough is enough. It's time to look across the aisle and have the rise of the governing deliver for the American people.
So that was a good deal he cut last week with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. You like that?
I thought it was brilliant. I think it was the exact message to send, and I think it sends the message that we got to govern here up on the Hill, and now he's issued a challenge, and I think we're up to it in the Problem Solvers Caucus to get it done.
I know somebody would think, I'm sure,
He's spending too much time with me, I think.
I'm sure you think the deal was brilliant last week, don't you?
I think it's exactly what we need. We need bipartisanship. We need to get things done. I think anybody you talk to wants us to roll up our sleeves and work across the aisle and actually make progress on issues like tax reform, infrastructure, healthcare. So I think this new era of bipartisanship is exactly what the American public wants.
Congressman Gottheimer, what's harder, reaching across the aisle to a Republican or reaching across the Hudson River to somebody from New Jersey?
Why do you have a dog on? Excuse me.
He's talking
Congressman
himself, I'm a
Gottheimer
New
is from
Yorker,
New
so we'll work
Jersey.
together.
Gottheimer's from New
Jersey.
Jersey. Reed is from New
Jersey.
Jersey. Still the same river you got to reach across.
Yes, we're reaching.
Okay.
Get it done.
Let's talk in all sincerity, though, because we talk so much about people want tax reform. Congressman Gottheimer, what is it that we can actually expect to see? Because we ask for the details over and over and over, and the president himself is yet to give us any.
Well, part of why we're going over there today is to get more details and to hear what the president, what he's expecting. Obviously, I talk to Tom all the time about what hopefully will come out of Congress together. But for me, it's getting the rates down and it's making sure small businesses and all businesses get relief. Also, middle-class workers, we need them to get relief. And for me, being from New Jersey, we have to make sure that we don't do it on the backs of certain states. So the state and local tax deduction, making sure that's not eliminated is very, very important. And I plan to talk about that today.
So from whom? When you say you want to get the details today, Congressman Reed, who are you going to get those details from? Who has them?
What? Well, I will tell you, I've been on the Ways and Means Committee since 2010. That's a committee that writes the tax code for America. We've been working at this for 7+ years. And what we're going to start rolling out now and going through the legislative sausage-making process are those details as we speak. And I will tell you, look at what we did in the Better Way document. Look at what we've done historically with the Dave Camp proposal. What we've done is laid the foundation for the work to go forward, and it's going to start moving very quickly.
We really, really appreciate that you guys are doing this, that you're doing it in a bipartisan fashion. I will ask you, though, Congressman Reed, one of the problems that I've had since Donald Trump was running for president and made a speech in New York City last August where he said, we can get economic growth to 3%. That's what my advisors want me to say, but I think we can go to 4 or 5 or 6%. And there seems to be some tie between cutting tax rates and getting this remarkable roar of economic growth, and somehow that's going to prevent us from increasing the debt. I don't meet a lot of Republicans who actually believe that.
I will tell you, I believe if you lower the tax burden on America, you'll unleash the productivity and innovation that they have pent up on the sideline.
Okay,
If you don't agree with that,
from 2.2%.
if you don't agree with that, then I will tell you, look what we just did last quarter, 2.6%. Every economist I talked to over the last 6 months, that was
Congress,
impossible.
this is a good issue. I just want to, hold on.
That was one quarter.
Right, we're running at 2.2% annual growth, which is not very different from the average annual growth since 1970. So to get to 3% is almost 50%. But I'll give you that. I'll say that we might be able to get to 3%. I don't truly believe it. But do you really believe that nullifies the effect of cutting taxes and increasing the deficit? Because you are a Republican, and generally speaking, you guys don't like to do that.
No, very sensitive to the deficit and the debt that we've accumulated, but I think growth is the key dynamic that is going to be able to deliver the revenue we need to balance those budgets.
Congressman Gottheimer, can you get, sorry about that. Go ahead, sir.
No.
We're trying to do the New York, New Jersey thing here, too. Congressman Gottheimer, do you believe in that way of stimulating economic growth so as to cut taxes and not increase the deficit?
Well, I think we have to be realistic and not rosy, right? I think you have to understand what real growth is going to be. I believe that we can get the economy going, and we need to do that through investment in infrastructure, but also tax reform. But I do believe we have to be very, very careful not to get ahead of ourselves on what our projections are because of the deficit, because of the debt we're accumulating, and I don't want to leave that up to my children. So we have to be very, very careful in how we do this.
Congressman Reed, when President Trump was giving a speech in the Midwest last week, he was saying to the workers essentially at a factory, this tax reform, he said, it's going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for me. Walk me through sort of the mindset there. How does the average factory worker benefit, but someone like President Trump doesn't? He says it's not good for big business, but to me, from what we've seen, if you have an LLC, for example, it's a positive. And the president, he's got hundreds of LLCs. How does it benefit a factory worker, but not the president?
Well, just take the goal of simplicity. I mean, you talk to so many factory workers that are going to the tax preparers, having to take out short-term loans and the costs that are occurring with that. You get a simple code with an expanded standard deduction, that benefits them. They keep more money in their pocket, not going to a tax preparer.
But, sir,
that is what we're trying to do.
Unless you have a completely flat tax, as long as tax specialists, as long as corporations have tax departments, then it is always going to benefit the rich and the more sophisticated.
It's going to benefit us all, and the growth component of having those factories be in a stronger position to invest capital in their equipment, get the immediate expensing so that cash goes back to those businesses. That, to me, is small business America at its best, where they're investing in their people and their investment in their family businesses.
And why is it that you believe that those companies are going to invest in people? Any major investment we've seen in the last 8 years has been in automation. It's not been in human capital.
I would say, as being a former small business owner, my employees were part of my family, and as we grew together, they had more employees in that office, and they had better opportunities for themselves and their children. We've educated a lot of folks working together in regards to the job opportunities we created as a small business. That's the heart of America that we're speaking for, and that's what we're working for. Not the top 1%. We're here for the middle working class of America because they're the ones that are suffering the most with this tax code.
All right, so I want our viewers, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming on here and having this discussion with us. I want our viewers to get into this and tell us what you do and don't want to know and what you do and don't understand about this tax reform proposal. Hit us up at #VelshieRule. Congressman Gottheimer, I have to ask you this, though. How do you end up selling to your constituents the idea that the specificity that we have on this tax program so far does at first blush, and I take Congressman Reed at his word, but at first blush it does look like much tax reform looks, something that benefits rich or business people as opposed to what most people in America are, and they are working wage earners?
It's a great question. When I'm home, everybody says my taxes are too high. We got to deal with it. It's too expensive here, especially in Jersey. Really, really expensive. We got to get taxes down. But to your point, the question is how. We don't have enough details yet. I'm very eager to get those details so that we can talk about it. And it's part of why we're going today. I want to actually speak up to the people I represent and understand how it's going to affect us. And so I think we're going to learn more in these coming weeks. And I think if Tom is right and we can actually make sure this helps working folks and lift everybody up and small businesses and get that kind of broad-based growth that we need, that's exactly what will be good for Jersey and the country. It's also, by the way, why we're there today to talk about infrastructure. And we're talking about DACA today, right? And there's another issue that I think there's great bipartisan opportunity for. And so I think it'll be a real meeting that covers a lot of bipartisan topics, which obviously is important to both of us.
Well, Congressman Gottheimer, maybe the taxes are so high in New Jersey because it's the greatest state out there. It's like God's country. It's really special.
Obviously, it's God's country, and that's why everyone's there. We've got the best schools and the best pizza around. But I think we should pay lower taxes. That's just me.
I agree.
Best beaches too. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Republican Congressman Tom Reed of New York and Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer from New Jersey. We love bipartisanship on this show. Look at us.
Yeah.
We disagree.
New York,
every
New
day.
Jersey, whatever you want,
There you go. Both live
Well,
there.
there we go. There we go.
All right.
Good to see you. Yeah, well, you're moving to Jersey. That's right. That'll be a little awkward for us constituents, but good to see both of you. Thank you. Hey, look, while we're in the spirit of bipartisanship, we actually do have to fix the health care situation in this country. There's another suggestion, which I think brings us to about 5 active suggestions underway right now. This one is called Medicare for All. In just a few hours, Senator Bernie Sanders is going to unveil a new health care bill. We're going to tell you which senators are with him and how likely that new proposal is to pass.
And we're watching markets for you this hour. There you have it. They're down. Really? That's unchanged. Don't forget.
And we've had a good few days of a lot of runs.
A very
Check your
strong
401k. Things have been
run.
going very well in the market.
Without a doubt.
You're
We
watching
are
Belshie Roll.